Hello everyone, and welcome back to Best Manhwa Recap. Your support means a lot to me, and I am thrilled to introduce you to this new manhwa. In Ju Young's heart, a flicker of realization passed by. He didn't sense the benevolent presence of his savior. The leader, horror in his eyes, gazed at the figure sitting right in front of him. Yet even from such proximity, he could not sense the aura of this person. He surmised that a professional assassin stood before him and decided to find out if the stranger in the mask was one of the four commanders. The person in the mask was surprised by Ju Young's knowledge. He addressed the leader by name, sharing this information with him. This turn of events strengthened Ju Young's belief that one of the four commanders stood before him. He was well aware that he couldn't defeat the masked man alone. Ju Young expressed gratitude for the opportunity of this meeting, calling it a great honor. He then inquired about why the secret sword of the Murong alliance had found its way to this humble place. His aim was to buy time, and continuing the conversation, he asked if the Murong alliance intended to break the treaty and start a war. In an attempt to signal, he pulled a smoke bomb from his sleeve. However, he underestimated his interlocutor. The masked individual stated that he had no affiliation with the four commanders of the Murong alliance. Furthermore, he expressed a deep hatred for the Murong alliance. Just another moment, and Ju Young is about to activate the smoke bomb. But it doesn't happen. The tension is mounting. The leader did not expect his plan to be thwarted. In this critical moment, time seems to slow down, as if the whole world freezes in anticipation of the inevitable. His body freezes like stone from the horror he experienced, realizing that the sword strike took his head. The remnants of living emotions pierce through his last moments, like a slowed-down movie, where each frame feels like eternity. Powerlessness in the face of the inevitable overwhelms him. The smoke bomb slips from his fingers, emitting a final spark as if bidding farewell to its master. The leader, bewildered by what's happening, can't believe his eyes. His hand trembles as he grabs his throat, as if expecting it to disappear in the next moment. Doubts about whether this entire scene was an illusion flicker in his mind. The person in the mask warns Ju Young not to attempt any tricks. He has no intention of exterminating their gang today. His voice carries a peculiar blend of respect and caution. A bloody red light flickers in his eyes, like an omen of a sinister event unfolding in the darkness. Ju Young is bewildered by what's happening. He can't comprehend the intentions of the man standing before him. Meanwhile, the masked man calmly conveys that everything is under his control. He has set up a barrier, ensuring that no one outside will hear anything. The assassin displays a red scroll he took from the leader of the outer hall, Murong. In continuation, he says that if the Great Blood Emperor finds out about this, the entire gang will be exterminated. The assassin's voice is filled with confidence, as if he's demonstrating his unwavering resolve. Ju Young can't believe his eyes. He understands perfectly well what the man is holding in his hands. Anger ignites in his chest, a bright flame illuminating his mind. The man in the mask, watching Ju Young's reaction, figured out that he understood what document he was holding. Confirming his suspicions, he said that he brought this scroll from the outer hall. In reality, the assassin took everything he could find there. At least the papers were indeed from there. Ju Young clenched his fists in anger, glared furiously at Murong's head lying on the floor, and pondered the weight of the situation, realizing that Murong hadn't disposed of the document. For this, he would have killed him again, had he been alive. The assassin, maintaining composure, drew a logical conclusion, expecting that the leader now comprehended the complex situation. Like a conductor of an orchestra, pressing on invisible strings of intrigue, he declared the necessity to move on to something significant. Ju Young, though brimming with anger, inquired about what the masked man wanted from him. The assassin calmly uttered, "Yangzhou County." His voice sounded confident. Beads of cold sweat covered his face as he looked at the masked man in bewilderment. A mixture of fear and astonishment immobilized him, as if time had slowed down to emphasize this moment of incomprehension. The aura of murderous intent enveloped the room. The assassin's eyes blazed a bloody red, and with a bone-chilling voice, he told Ju Young to swear that his gang would never again touch Yangzhou County. The aura was so strong that Kwok's legs gave way, and he responded that even if they retreat, the Bloody Unicorn gang would seize control of Yangzhou County. The assassin replied, expressing confidence that Ju Young wouldn't want to be overthrown by the Iron Blood Battalion. It would be better if he managed his territories remotely. The man in the mask increased the mental pressure of his aura to the extent that blood flowed from Kwok's eyes, nose, and mouth, causing him to fall to his knees. The assassin added that if he tries to do something, he will have to deal not only with the Great Blood Emperor, but with him personally. Blood streamed down Juyong's chin and dripped onto the floor in large red drops. He replied that he understood everything perfectly and begged for mercy. The man in the mask understood perfectly well that Juyong was right when he spoke about the immediate replacement of one gang by another if eliminated. He also understood that things would become far more unpleasant if the Iron Blood Battalion got involved. The best solution would be to leave Kwok in power. It was not an easy decision, but the assassin did not know which solution could be the best in the current situation. The monstrous pressure of the aura dissipated as quickly as it had begun. The leader could finally breathe normally. A whirlwind of thoughts swirled in his mind. He had just narrowly escaped death and couldn't comprehend where such a monster could come from. Were the four commanders really that powerful? And did the person standing in front of him really have nothing to do with the Murong alliance? Turning his back to depart, the man in the mask intended to add one more condition. He wanted to say that everything said should be kept in secret. But before he could finish, his words were interrupted by screams from the street. "Intruder! We've found the intruder!" rang out a loud cry. The assassin was surprised by what was happening. He needed to quickly try to disappear into the shadows. Meanwhile, Murong observed everything that was happening from the rooftop of one of the buildings. She saw the barrier. It was barely discernible, but from there emanated an incredibly chilling aspiration to kill. She understood that this was something mighty, Demon Lord. Ironfoot was not capable of such. She knew that the White Tiger was there and in danger. There was a need to hurry to help him. Grabbing the hilt of her sword, she was ready to fight the guards to help him. Suddenly, the warrior sneaked up on her, attempting to attack, but she managed to sense the approaching danger. Swiftly turning, she blocked the strike. She was disappointed that she got distracted by the defensive barrier and forgot about cover. This situation didn't tolerate misunderstandings, and every mistake could cost her dearly. The battle was inevitable, and she had to remain vigilant in every situation. This was Jima, Shadow Hall leader. He was a formidable opponent. He realized that the sudden attack failed. Jumping onto the roof of another building, he looked at Murong with disdain. He pondered if she was the one responsible for the fire that broke out in the outer hall. The disdain in the Shadow Hall leader's gaze intensified. Murong didn't see a formidable opponent in him. Her priority was to quickly go to the aid of the White Tiger. She asserted that she hadn't set the hall on fire, eager to clear any misunderstandings. The tension in the air was palpable, and the situation remained on the precipice, demanding a careful approach to avoid an unnecessary escalation. Jima was unwilling to listen to her. He was convinced she was guilty of the fire. He had no intention of letting her go and prepared to attack. Murong understood that he wouldn't let her go and braced herself for a fight. She realized that the best resolution to this conflict would be to defeat him. He placed the whistle in his mouth and blew sharply, trying to alert his guards so they could aid him in apprehending the intruder. The shrill sound echoed through the night, cutting through the tense atmosphere. The leader knew that capturing this individual was crucial to maintaining order and asserting his authority. The guards instantly heard the sound and spotted the stranger. Their gazes were fixated on her. Murong realized that the situation had escalated to the extreme. Seizing the opportunity while she was distracted, Jima swiftly leaped from the roof and dashed towards her. He tried to land a devastating blow to her head, but Murong's proficiency was more than enough to gracefully evade the strike, displaying her honed combat abilities. Jima attempted to unleash a series of strikes, but she effortlessly dodged each one, frustrating him immensely. He wanted to end her life, but found himself unable to do so. In Murong's mind, there was only a desire to assist the White Tiger. She decided to put an end to this annoying man as quickly as possible. Collecting her thoughts, she decided to strike Jima once to ensure he wouldn't interfere with what she intended to do. She clenched her fist and punched him right in the nose. Fear and awareness were visible in his eyes when he realized that the girl had coped with him without much effort. The force of the strike was enough for Jima to fall from the roof to the ground. It seemed that after such a hit, he might not even survive. It was shameful for him to lose to a girl like this. Murong stood on the roof, watching him fall to the ground. She hoped he would no longer be in her way. The guards were nearby and had already rushed at the sound of their master's whistle. They saw her and wanted to capture her, but climbing up to the roof was not easy for them. Understanding that engaging in a fight with the guards wasn't an option due to time constraints, Murong opted to flee in the direction of the white tiger. Her determination to aid the tiger drove her actions, making it her primary objective. At that moment, Jima regained consciousness, freeing himself from the layer of stones that covered him after the fall. He was filled with anger and a desire for revenge against her. He let out a piercing cry, ordering the guards to not let her escape and bring her to him. His voice echoed through the surroundings, filling the air with tension. The pursuit commenced. The guards found it difficult to navigate as agilely across the rooftops. They raced below, striving to keep her in their sights. Jima ordered squads 1 and 3 to go to the women's quarters, and the rest to follow him. He wanted to surround Murong from all sides. His anger and thirst for revenge were fierce. He could feel his heart beating faster as he thought about what he would do to the girl who dared to humiliate him. Meanwhile, Murong realized that she needed to escape this trap as soon as possible. She was in a situation where every second mattered. Hiding behind the wall of a nearby building, she grasped the reality of the overwhelming number of guards. She needed to devise a strategy to remain concealed in the darkness and evade any direct confrontation with them. Time was ticking, and she had to figure out a way to maneuver through undetected, relying on the shadows to her advantage, and sidestep any potential clash. She also realized that if started killing everyone in her path, it would create a significant political issue. She needed to quickly get to the main hall to protect the white tiger. Lost in her thoughts, Murong failed to perceive how Jima and his guards encircled her from every direction. She realized the situation was becoming critically complex. While she wanted to help the white tiger, her priority now was to save herself. Jima, realizing his advantage in the current situation, taunted her, attempting to minimize his embarrassment after Murong had broken his nose. She realized that the political complications were unavoidable now, and it was time for her to fight for her life. Gripping the hilt of her sword, she was ready to fight until the end. Suddenly, she experienced an inexplicable sensation from behind, as if someone was attempting to communicate with her telepathically. The masked man was indeed the white tiger, a realization that struck her immediately. The guards were baffled, unable to comprehend how he had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Using telepathy, he asked her why she was here and if she realized what the consequences might be if someone found out. Murong was glowing with happiness. She was overjoyed to see the white tiger alive and unharmed. It seemed like she forgot about everything in the world when he was nearby. He didn't understand the reason for her joy. He realized that they needed to get out of this situation to avoid attracting more attention to themselves. Jima also didn't understand who this masked stranger was and how he appeared here. He demanded that the stranger remove the mask and not resist. Realizing that they were together with Murong, Jima wanted to order his guards to kill them both, but he didn't have time to say it. It seemed like a moment, and he was already cleaved in two by the assassin's swift strike. Murong, like the others, was in shock at what she had witnessed. Nothing like this had ever been seen before, and no one had time to understand or know how to react to such an event. Surrounded by guards, he realized that he needed to eliminate everyone. He saw no other way out in the current situation. This desire caused everyone around to panic. The masked man radiated an aura that terrified all the guards. Murong realized that the aura she sensed from the main hall was that of the white tiger. After 2 years of not seeing each other, so much had changed. She could hardly believe her eyes. Suddenly, a loud cry from Juyong caught everyone's attention. He shouted for everyone to calm down. Looking at him, he realized that the assassin could kill everyone effortlessly. The strengths were vastly uneven. In his eyes, the realization of this fact was evident. The leader's words sounded timid, filling the space with incredible tension. Silence enveloped the place as if everyone present held their breath, anticipating his next words. The assassin's eyes, once filled with threat, now expressed a sense of expectancy, as if he awaited the outcome of this complex situation. Juyong apologized for his guards and pleaded for mercy, stating that he remembered the promises they had made and that he would handle everything. Murong stood there, disbelieving her ears. She had thought the white tiger was in danger, but it turned out that everyone was afraid of him and didn't want to incur his wrath. He asked her not to intervene in the situation. The man in the mask said that he had already spared their leader once, and it wouldn't be difficult for him to do it again. However, he mentioned that Juyong should keep his word, and then he would allow him to live. He concluded his speech and grabbed Murong by the thigh. In the next moment, they both disappeared together in an unknown direction. This spectacle instilled fear and horror in the onlookers. They had never witnessed anything like it before. The realization dawned upon them that the man in the mask possessed immense power, and they could perish here and now. As he dissipated into the air, the assassin added that they were never here, so that no one would know what had happened. After teleporting, they found themselves in the nearby mountains, with the night enveloping the surroundings. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel. It will be support for me. Murong's heart danced with joy at the sight of the white tiger, a familiar enigma. She longed to unravel the 2 years of mystery that separated them. Amidst the mountains, under the starlit night, their story was poised to continue. The questions she held in her eyes were an invitation for him to reveal his journey. Murong was brimming with delight at the reunion and a deep desire to learn more from him. The assassin stood, turned away from her, lost in thought, uncertain of what to say. Not understanding her intentions, he uttered that he knew nothing of a white tiger. His words hung in the air, veiled by a hint of mystery and uncertainty. Murong felt a twinge of disappointment, but determination still flickered in her eyes. This meeting held secrets and revelations, and she was determined to unravel them. Turning away from her, he made it clear that he didn't want to continue the conversation. He advised her to leave as soon as possible, emphasizing that she was still on hostile territory. As she walked closer to him, a playful grin painted her face. It was as if she was teasing the masked figure, known as number 100. There was a certain curiosity in her eyes, a desire to unravel the mysteries that surrounded him. It was a subtle challenge, a playful attempt to break through his stoic demeanor. She wanted to know, did he cut up that guy in front of everyone because he called her names? He turned away, unwilling to look in her direction, and asked her to stop calling him number 100. He had long forgotten those days and didn't want to revisit them. Murong was puzzled. She couldn't seem to engage him in conversation. In his thoughts, he commanded her to forget about the number 100. These conversations forced him to return to the past in his memories. It was the Order of the Destruction of Demons, an elite group of assassins created by the Murong Alliance in response to the unification of the assassins of the Demon Union. It was composed of 99 members grouped in 4 tiers. Each member was designated a call number ranging from 2 to 100 based on their skill level. Number 100 was the weakest of all the assassins. Demon Elimination Order had 2 strata. First, the high-ranking members who had the right to command a group of their choosing based on the mission they took. Members ranking above 30 composed of prodigies of prestigious martial sects and clans who had access to elixirs and were trained in special techniques since childhood. And second, the rest of the members who belonged to small and medium-sized martial sects and clans or martial academies. As a matter of fact, the low-ranking members were nothing more than disposable pawns meant to be used by high-ranking members for accomplishing their goals. For example, number 97, who had joined the Demon Elimination Order not too long ago, was the first to die. In an impossible mission number 19 forced to carry out, number 97 had to take the blow meant for number 19. Eventually, the target escaped despite number 97's sacrifice. That night, number 19 mocked number 97. He could have succeeded in the mission if only this newbie had managed to block the strike properly. He thought he had failed the mission because this newbie couldn't deflect the blow. The overwhelming emotions of number 100 were fueled by the fact that the strong and experienced members of the Order blamed the weak number 97 for the mission's failure. He realized that in a system where worth was measured by strength and rank, there was no room for justice. A storm of feelings clouded his mind, making him contemplate the value of each life, regardless of position and status. He grabbed number 19 by the collar and began shouting, exposing his lie. Number 100 said that the problem lay in his plan. He led everyone into the attack when the order was to retreat, and number 97 saved his life by sacrificing his own. Such accusations seemed rash, coming from the weakest in the ranking. Number 19 didn't pay attention, pushing him away and landing a blow to his face. He stated that number 97 had died because he was weak, needing more training and strength to be able to defend himself. He continued to beat up number 100, being much stronger and unwilling to let the weak tell him what to do. The girl who witnessed number 19 beating up number 100 told him not to be rash. She understood that beating each other up was not the wisest solution. It was number 5, and she was stronger than number 19, capable of stopping the fight at any moment. He began to justify himself to her, saying that number 100 was the one who first began to humiliate him and engaged in a fight with him. Number 8 also came to stop the fight. Authority and concern were evident in his voice. Enough, we are a team. Fighting among ourselves only weakens us. He looked at number 19 and then at number 100, his expression stern. We must work together, not against each other. We all have a common goal, and our strength lies in unity. Number 100 was frustrated that he couldn't prove his point because he was weaker. Since then, he was always assigned to the most difficult missions, being placed as the primary target at the forefront of attacks. This experience was both a burden and a challenge. He knew he had to prove himself, not only to silence the doubts of others, but to overcome the doubts within himself. Each mission was an opportunity to demonstrate his strength and determination, to rise above the limitations placed upon him by the numbering system. He trained tirelessly, pushing his body and mind to their limits and beyond. He wanted to show that the number assigned to him did not define his capabilities. Many times he teetered on the edge of death, facing adversaries that seemed insurmountable. The moments when he gazed into the abyss and brushed against mortality sharpened his instincts and forged his resilience. Number 5 was deeply concerned about his well-being. It wasn't the first time he had teetered on the edge of life and death. Each instance was a harrowing experience, a reminder of the perilous path he walked as an assassin. She had witnessed his resilience and the scars he bore, both physical and emotional, from these near-death encounters. She knew the toll it took on him. The sleepless nights haunted by the ghosts of past missions, the adrenaline-fueled moments when survival was uncertain, the continuous battle against adversaries who sought to extinguish his light. As number 5 watched him face yet another life-threatening situation, she couldn't help but admire his courage. She wished he didn't have to endure such trials, but she knew it was an inescapable part of his life. And so, she stood by him, ready to support and assist in any way she could, hoping that his strength and resilience would see him through once again. Understanding that number 100 was ready to fight until the last drop of blood, she too wanted to stand by his side and assist him. She told him that she would accompany him on all his missions to provide support. Her determination was fueled by a sense of loyalty and care for him. Together, they made a formidable team. He was the sword, the frontline fighter, and she was the shield, the one who watched his back. They complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses, enhancing their chances of success in their perilous missions. Number 5 did not want him to die. She was very worried about him. It seemed that he was not indifferent to her. Number 8 also joined their team, and they fought shoulder to shoulder for several years. Each member brought their unique strengths and skills to the table, creating a synergy that made them a formidable force. Unfortunately, after years had passed, nobody below the 70th level survived, except him. He had accomplished the highest number of missions within the organization. Despite the odds, he persisted and thrived, honing his skills and overcoming challenges that would have broken others. He had become a beacon of hope for the ones who aspired to rise beyond their limitations, showcasing that determination and perseverance could defy the cruelest of circumstances. The moment came when they stopped calling him the weakest number 100. His efforts, courage, and uncompromising struggle have borne fruit. Now his name was associated with strength, skill, and wisdom. The number 100 became a symbol of inflexibility, an example for other fighters in this organization. Number 5 was always by his side, as promised. She became his loyal companion and a reliable ally in this world full of dangers and challenges. Her support and friendship were incredibly important to him. Together, they went through numerous difficult trials, engaging in battles with darkness and evil. Their souls were intertwined with a common purpose and ideals. Number 100 knew he could rely on number 5 in the toughest moments, and she knew he would always come to help. More time passed, and after another battle, a couple of lovers sat on the green grass, gently holding each other's hands. He smiled, his heart racing as she said, "Number 100, I like you." The words sent a surge of joy and warmth through him, a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if a ray of sunshine had broken through the clouds, brightening his world. He smiled and replied, and I like you too." In their eyes, there was a warm glow of love and understanding. They knew that in this world where dangers lurked at every step, they had each other, and that was the most precious thing. Their souls were connected not only through battle but also through love, making each of their days special. Embraced and sharing kisses while sitting on the grass, it felt like these were the best moments of their lives. Amidst this bright and cozy corner, where the sun rays bore witness to eternal love, an integral part was played by number 8. He was the vigilant guardian of their safety, an invisible sentinel in this world where danger and darkness always lurked. Number 8's heart beat in harmony with their emotions. His care for them was selfless, akin to that of a faithful friend. Together, they went through so many storms and trials that it cemented their bond even stronger. Number 8, as a faithful companion, witnessed all their victories and defeats. His presence was like a sign that they were never alone. He became a part of their lives, an important link in the chain of their history. It seemed that nothing could shatter their happiness. But as is often the case, trouble comes from where you least expect it. Sword god Murong informed that number 100 is now free to return to the city and handed him the military service certificate. It was a reward for a series of successful missions and contributions to the common cause. Number 100 didn't want to return to the city and leave his beloved number 5. He asked if there was any compelling reason why he should leave the service. His audacious question amused him. He had heard that number 100 was fearless and always at the forefront. He decided to tell him how it really was. He said that number 5 is his daughter, and he needs to end all relations with her. There was an unexpected truth in these words. Number 100 looked at Murong incredulously, a mixture of surprise and displeasure reflected on his face. Suddenly, the whole world around him reeled, and his self-confident, well-built world turned upside down. He continued, stating that a simple villager from a rural academy couldn't easily get close to his daughter, especially considering she was already engaged. "But since you have done much for the Alliance and risked your life for us multiple times, I make you an offer. Leave this place now, and don't even think about getting closer to her." His emotions were a tumultuous sea, tossed and turned by the unexpected revelation. It was as if the solid ground beneath him had suddenly shifted, leaving him off balance and questioning everything he thought he knew. The gravity of the revelation began to weigh heavily on him, leaving him grappling with a mixture of conflicting thoughts and feelings. Summoning all his willpower, he spoke. "If the reason I am being sent to the city is because of number 5, then I am compelled to decline." Murong wasn't ready to hear such a thing. Surprise and anger could be seen on his face. He continued, "Even if you are father number 5, you cannot control the feelings of your adult daughter. If she promises another, he will listen to her opinion on this matter and make the appropriate decision. If she chooses her new fiancé, then he will quietly leave. But if not..." His conversation was interrupted by a sword suddenly pressed to his throat. It was Murong Seongjai, the god of swords, who put his sword to his throat. He didn't even touch the sword. The strength of his skills allowed him to use the sword. He said that he didn't give a choice for number 100. He needs to accept his offer if he doesn't want to die now. Pretty scared, number 100, driven by a sense of love, said, "So the famous sword god threatens the newcomer like a thug?" This puzzled Seongjai. He realized that threats to force him to release his daughter would not work. It was necessary either to kill him or change the plan of action. With a movement of his fingers, he removed the sword from the throat of number 100. He realized that threats would not frighten him. He had to come up with another plan of action. He asked, since he considers her opinion, why he does not want to make her happy, unless a guy from the village can give her something besides love. She has been used to living in luxury since childhood. Of course, at first she will be happy, just being together, as if the whole world is at her feet. But over time, she will gradually begin to reminisce about her past life. The delicacies she enjoyed, the dresses and jewelry she delighted in, the endless source of wealth, and you will remain the same. You will be troubled and worried about how to provide for your wife, and you constantly expose her to danger. She was already on the brink of death 3 times trying to save you. So now, thinking about it, answer, can you make her happy? In his eyes there was fury, but he still couldn't find an answer. These words sounded like a challenge to him, but the fact that they were true paralyzed his outrage and made him reflect. Sword god Murong Seongjae gave him a month to think. saying that this time was enough to understand what number 100 wanted to do next. He left, leaving him alone with the dismissal letter. Number 100 sat, hunched over the letter, contemplating what steps to take next. A whirlwind of thoughts stormed through his mind: doubts, fear, ambitions, and a yearning for new horizons. His life seemed to hang by a thread, and every choice had potentially enormous consequences. He knew he needed to make a decision, but what exactly? That was the question. After a month, he was assigned his last mission. That month was long and arduous. Number 100 constantly contemplated what decision to make. Doubts and hesitations gnawed at him. Every night and day were filled with internal storms, a struggle with his own beliefs and ideas about the future. He knew that his decision would affect his entire life, his beloved, and his destiny. He became a teacher at the Dragon and Tiger Martial Arts Academy. Over time, he liked to watch and teach the new generation of high-class fighters of the Dragon and Tiger School. He tried to pass on his experience to each of the students by making comments to them during training. He wanted the academy to become stronger, and for this more fighters are needed, who after training will be able to defend the title of the academy. Suddenly someone's voice came from behind. It was Murong. She asked how he was doing with the new fighters. She looked stunning in the vast, silky dress that billowed in the wind, resembling a living being. Her eyes sparkled with energy and confidence, and her smile added a mysterious charm. Her appearance seemed to embody harmony and a timeless, unyielding strength. Musang couldn't take his eyes off her. His heart beat faster, as if in response to her majestic beauty. Magic seemed to arise in his soul, making time stand still. Her grace and elegance blinded him, like a bright beam in the dark night. With each passing moment, his admiration only grew, as if she were a living work of art crafted to dazzle his inner world with incredible beauty. He couldn't take his eyes off her, but pulling himself together, he turned away and replied that there had been more fighters before. He was sure that everything would return to its place soon. He tried to show his indifference to Murong as much as possible. For a moment, he pondered on how he, too, was once a warrior being taught by a teacher. Murong asked if he cherished the memories of those times when they were budding warriors. Her gaze was persistent, as if she sought in his eyes an answer that could change the course of their conversation. For a moment they stood there, gazing at each other, as if unable to tear their eyes away. The air seemed charged with unspoken words and emotions, creating a palpable tension between them. The young man, however, suppressed his emotions and turned away, pretending that nothing significant was happening between them. But deep inside, the turmoil of emotions and unspoken words echoed loudly, leaving an unspoken connection hanging in the air, a story untold and a moment unresolved. He replied that these were just ordinary memories, and it was best for him to let go of them. For a moment, they stood there, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of the unspoken lingering in the air. She clenched her fist in frustration and said that it was a lie. He remembered everything and was deliberately trying to appear indifferent towards her. The tension in the air thickened, their unspoken feelings hanging between them like a storm cloud, ready to break at any moment. She couldn't understand why he was acting this way. She wanted him to talk about the issue so that they could solve it together. The silence between them grew, carrying a sense of urgency and unspoken words that begged to be heard. In his voice, there was a sense of bewilderment, as if he didn't understand why it mattered to her. He asked, "Why does this matter to you? Does she truly want to know the truth, direct and impartial?" But a hint of concern flickered in his eyes. Perhaps he began to realize that Murong's questions were shaking his inner world, disrupting the peace of his heart. Without a moment's hesitation, she said. She wanted to know the whole truth. The future defenders of the Dragon and Tiger Academy continued their training. Nearby, Murong and Musang tried to understand their feelings for each other. Suddenly, he said that he was suffering without her. These words came unexpectedly and sincerely. He felt something inside him shift, stir. He could no longer conceal his feelings. She was very surprised by this. She didn't know what to say. She looked into his eyes, trying to understand the depth of his feelings, but words seemed to escape her in that moment. He went on to say that when he sees her, memories of the past days when they were together engulf him. He also shared that he is tormented by the pain he doesn't want to experience again. The pain of seeing her being hurt by a sword when she tried to protect him. These were unbearable emotions. he couldn't find the strength to help her. And he was glad she stayed alive. The memories of that moment haunted him, the feeling of helplessness and fear that he might lose her forever. He realized how much she meant to him, how her safety and well-being had become a priority in his life. Yet, he struggled to find the right words to express his emotions, torn between the desire to protect her. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to make her happy, and that if she stayed by his side, he couldn't ensure her safety. The burden of his past experiences weighed heavily on him, making him doubt his ability to provide the secure and joyful life she deserved. He asked her a question. Now, do his words look like a lie? She looked at him, tears streaming down her eyes. She didn't know what to say to him. The pain of seeing him struggle with his own emotions and doubts was tearing at her heart. The desire to comfort him battled with the realization that she couldn't magically erase his fears and insecurities. It was a heartbreaking moment, where words seemed inadequate to express the depth of emotions between them. Turning away from her, he told her to go back to where she belonged. The words were sharp, like a blade cutting through the already heavy atmosphere. The pain in his voice was palpable, a mix of frustration, fear, and self-imposed duty. He wanted to shield her from harm, yet felt inadequate in his ability to do so. Reaching out her hand, she tried to stop him, but it seemed almost impossible. He had made up his mind. The space between them felt like an unbridgeable chasm, filled with unsaid words and the ache of parting. She could only watch, her heart torn between respecting his choice and the desire to pull him back, to have him stay. Standing by the pillar, he reassured himself that he had done the right thing. Only this way could she forget him and start a new life where she would be happier and safer than with him. She stood there, confusion and sadness battled within her. Should she chase after him and try to convince him to stay? Or should she respect his decision, no matter how much it hurt? In that moment, someone unexpectedly threw their sword at him. It was a complete surprise. In the academy where he was teaching, attacking each other was unacceptable. The sword whizzed through the air, aimed at him with unexpected force and intent, shattering the calmness of the surroundings. It was the woman who had cared for Murong when she was young. Her name was Senior Dragon Staff Papa. She looked at Musang with an angry expression on her face. He retrieved the sword and brought it to her, asking, "Why did you throw your sword at the younger one?" She looked at him with an angry expression and ordered him to follow her. The fury in her eyes spoke of unresolved conflicts and a storm of emotions. She swiftly soared upwards, racing into the distance. Musang was compelled to follow his senior teacher. He wondered what awaited them and what revelations would come to light in this unexpected turn of events. She led him to a deserted field where there was only the two of them, leaving him puzzled. She also told him to raise his sword. He couldn't understand why she brought him to this place and demanded that he raise his sword. The ground beneath them trembled as if responding to the force of the strike. The air crackled with a charged intensity, and the once peaceful field now felt like the arena of an impending confrontation. The stern look on Senior Dragonstaff Papa's face conveyed determination, as if she was about to impart a crucial lesson. Musang, though staggered, squared his shoulders and readied himself for what was to come. The duel of words and actions was about to unfold. It was as if the very energy in the air vibrated with the intensity of the hit, making it challenging for him to stand on his own. After showing her intentions, she once again told him to raise his sword. They stood facing each other, anticipating the inevitable conflict. The tension in the air was thick, and the weight of their unspoken words hung heavy between them. The moment seemed to stretch, each second echoing the anticipation of what was to come. Musang asked why she was so angry with him. He assumed it was because of the Muran Patrol Alliance, Murong. It seemed like she wasn't willing to engage in a dialogue with him at this moment. Looking at him with a fierce gaze, she stated that she would make him unsheath his sword. She used the Dragon Strike ability. This is a very strong ability, few people could dodge it. Musang, seemingly locking eyes with the dragon, skillfully evaded its bite effortlessly, further fueling Papa's anger. He grappled with conflicting emotions, torn between the instinct to defend himself and the reluctance to harm her. He parried and dodged, hoping to dissipate her aggression and halt the relentless attacks without causing injury. Swinging once again, Papa continued her assault. It was evident that she aimed to inflict pain upon him. Watching him dodge again and again, she got more and more angry at him. The next blow Musang was able to block. He seized her staff and held it firmly, hoping to give her a moment to regain composure and cease her relentless attacks. Despite dodging her assaults, Senior Dragon Staff Papa possessed a high-level ability in reserve, one she had yet to employ. Taking advantage of Musang's firm grip on her staff, not allowing her to retrieve it, she decided to share with him the reason behind her aggression. Papa said that she had taken care of the mistress all her childhood and had devoted her entire life to ensuring her safety and happiness. But after the appearance of Musang in her life, the mistress started putting herself in danger. This greatly infuriated Papa, and she exerted even more effort to regain control of her staff and deliver her most powerful strike against him. He stood, bracing himself against the ground, but it seemed like he was about to merge with it. She continued, stating that the young lady was the strongest and bravest she had ever known. Every time her father punished her, she never flinched and obediently carried out all his demands. And now, he was making her cry and taking away her chance to be happy. Papa realized that simple strikes wouldn't harm him, so she told him not to blame her for the cruelty that would be shown now. Her eyes burned with a fierce flame, as if the earth itself would ignite from her power. Musang understood that she was using chi enhancement. He had never encountered such a magnitude of power before. It was the strongest ability Papa could utilize. The spectacle was horrifying. It seemed like she could incinerate him with just a single glance. She activated the Dragon Staff Technique number 3 with her staff, the Dragon of the Dragon. It was an incredibly powerful ability that seemed capable of reducing everything to ashes, leaving no chance of survival for anyone. He managed to withstand the attack without any visible injuries, successfully blocking this strike. No one had ever done this before. Shaking off the ashes that remained from his burned clothes, he asked if she was satisfied. She looked at him with a mix of surprise and acknowledgement. Her gaze showed that she respected his strength and endurance. Musang could endure the blow, scorching his clothes, a feat achievable only through mastering the Shaolin Vajra technique. Shaking off the ashes that remained from his clothes, he asked if she was satisfied with his performance. Surprise and acknowledgement were evident in her gaze. Having pushed off the ground, he flew back to the academy. Papa stood alone on the battlefield, surprised that Musang never reached his sword. Having reached his room, he took off his charred clothes and put on new ones to avoid attracting unnecessary attention. The echoes of the battle still resonated in his eyes, and he knew that this encounter with Papa had left a mark on his soul. He decided to rest and recover. The battle, though seemingly easy at first glance, had drained all of Musang's energy. He wanted to sleep and gather his strength. He recalled Murong once again, and thought that it was finally over, and there was no more reason to see her. The burden of memories, the struggle to forget the pain they both endured, weighed heavily on him. The lingering emotions tugged at his heart, a mix of suffering, longing, and the bittersweet taste of a past he couldn't entirely let go of. His memories were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Kang, and she asked if she could come in. With fear in her voice, she conveyed the arrival of someone from Unbounded Manor. It's a martial faction based out of the eastern region of Gansu, which was established 80 years ago by Woon Jae-hul, an external disciple of the Kongtong sect. They once had an exceptional status comparable to 9 great sects, 1 union, and got active support from the Murong alliance. They were the ones who confronted the Iron Blood Battalion, one of the 4 forces of the Demon Union that dominated the western regions of Gansu, on the front lines. However, Musang heard that these days they've drastically shrunk in size, and since even the Kongtong sect is sealed, they are going through difficult times. He pondered what they could possibly need from their martial academy. A mixture of fear and excitement was reflected on the face of the head of the Boundless Estate. He was asking about the presence of the Heavenly Sword Goddess. The head of the academy, pouring tea for the guest, inquired about how he came to know about this. Sun realized that the rumors were indeed true. Bowing respectfully, he implored the head of the academy to help him. He asked to arrange a meeting with the senior patrol of the Murong Alliance and promised never to forget such kindness. Musang stood nearby, perplexed by the urgency and interest in meeting the senior patrol. He didn't want to see her again. He had barely managed to put everything with her behind. The memories were still fresh, and the wounds, emotional and physical, had not completely healed. The idea of encountering her, especially in such a hurried and unexpected manner, stirred up a whirlwind of conflicting emotions within him. Sun added that he was in despair, comparing himself to a drowning man desperate to grab any opportunity to survive. He pleaded once again for his request to be fulfilled. Murong asked the head of Unbounded Manor for an opportunity to express himself on this matter. He said that the senior patrol was responsible for the server territories, and if someone of her status got involved in the Western territories, it would be seen as an abuse of power and could cause a host of problems. He also added that the Western region had its own senior patrol officer, who hailed from the middle clan and was known for his achievements and fairness. Wouldn't it be better to ask him for help? He didn't finish his sentence when he heard a voice behind him. The voice of the senior patrol officer, expressing surprise at Master Murong's concern for her. She added that only she could judge whether this exceeded her authority. Entering the room with Senior Dragonstaff Papa, her presence in the room greatly surprised both the guest and the head of the academy. They hadn't expected to see her here at this moment. They greeted each other and introduced themselves, Unbounded Manor's son Chang Wu, and the chief patroller Murong Geomwa. She offered to sit down so that he would tell her the details. They sat down and the chief kindly offered his favorite tea. Mustang stood there as if petrified. He didn't expect to see her here. His heart was beating hard, as if trying to break free from his chest. His emotions hadn't cooled yet. Holding the cup delicately, Murong Geomhua cast a playful gaze at Murong, subtly attempting to kindle his emotions. It was a delicate dance of feelings, an intricate interplay of looks and gestures. Murong's heart grappled with a whirlwind of emotions, anticipation, a tinge of longing, and a subtle longing to bridge the gap that had widened over time. The intensity of his emotions seemed to shimmer around them. He gazed at her, attempting to decipher her intentions. His eyes held a mix of curiosity and a hint of cautiousness, like a puzzle solver carefully examining the pieces for the bigger picture. There was a subtle wariness, an awareness of the past. The chief patroller Murong broke the silence, inquiring about what the head of Unbounded Manor, son Chang Wu, had wanted from her. Chang Wu explained that their manor was in a precarious situation, and he was compelled to come here and figuratively kneel, even though it was beneath his dignity. Murong mentioned that she was the senior patroller of the northern gates, implying her limitations in authority. She expressed her desire to understand how she could assist such an esteemed guest. He explained, stating that he had already submitted dozens of requests to the Murong Alliance, but the senior patroller of the West hasn't responded to him. He also added that he has been waiting for a response for a year now. Murong fell into thought. Typically, a response comes within 3 to 6 months, but if there's been no answer for a year, something might have happened, or there could be issues with communication. She asked him what he wanted from her. He handed her the letter and asked for her help to ensure it was reviewed by the Murong Alliance management. After the war, the Kong Tong sect closed down, and the support they received from the Murong Alliance ceased. Their vast mansion was at the mercy of fate. At the same time, the Iron Blood Battalion grew stronger and expanded its sphere of influence. At this rate, they would engulf the entire region. Chang Wu grappled with a storm of emotions, desperation, and a flicker of hope, all intertwined. The situation bore down on him, the future of his clan teetering on a precarious edge. The uncertainty, the inability to predict when or if aid might arrive, gnawed at him. He also added, recently, an ominous force had emerged, causing great concern. In the vicinity, a clandestine and formidable group had surfaced, responsible for the deaths of numerous of his masters. The Unbounded Manor couldn't handle this alone. He hoped that the Alliance could conduct a thorough investigation in the province. The chief patroller Murong Geomwa contemplated her response. She understood the complexity of the situation, but wasn't sure if she could help him. Murong pondered over the situation. It was indeed a challenging predicament, but it was a problem that pertained to only a portion of the province, the western region to be precise. The plea from the Unbounded Manor was justified and crucial. However, the senior patrol of the north wouldn't be able to assist him. A heavy silence fell upon the room. Everyone grasped the complexity of the situation and the weight of the decision that needed to be made. Suddenly, to the surprise of everyone, the chief patroller Murong Geomwa, with a smile on her face and an air of ease in making the decision, agreed to assist Unbounded Manor. Murong was greatly surprised by her decision. He couldn't comprehend why she was attempting to help him. The situation was indeed complex. She said that his offer came at the right time. She was planning to visit everyone there, so she would be able to deliver his letter. A smile and newfound hope for a positive outcome gleamed in Changwu's eyes. She looked at Musang and said that she had one request, one that must be fulfilled if Sun Changwu wanted her assistance. She wanted Master Musang, who stood at the end of the room, to agree to a request from her. Any request she might make at any time. He would be obliged to fulfill it. Senior Dragon Staff Papa watched what was happening, understanding that Murong was in love with him, and her thoughts were solely about him. She was ready to do anything to be together. He did his best to decline this offer, stating that if it was a request from Unbounded Manor, they should fulfill its conditions, not him. Sun Changwu didn't want to listen to anything. He was willing to do anything for Geomhua to agree and fulfill his task. He knelt down and begged her to grant his wishes. He also added that if they help him with his request, he will establish trade relations with their academy. He knew this was a long-standing dream of the Dragon and Tiger Academies. Musang knew that everyone had long wanted to establish trade relations, and he understood how crucial it was for their academy. The presence of trade between them would guarantee income and the growth of their academy. The teacher approached him and patted his shoulder, telling him not to burden himself with such a decision. He was free to do as he wished, but the teacher understood that Musang would comply with the request. He knew that his student was willing to do anything to please his teacher. Jeomhua also understood that he would accept her offer. He had no other choice. It was time to bid farewell to the guest. Everyone went outside to see him off. The chief patroller, Murong Geomhua, and senior Dragon Staff Papa also expressed their gratitude and wished that everything would go well when they meet again. Unbounded Manor, Sun Changwu also conveyed his heartfelt gratitude to everyone for their support and assistance. He expressed a sincere hope that, in their next encounter, he would have the opportunity to extend his gratitude in a meaningful way. Geomhua and senior Dragon Staff Papa set off on their journey, both surprised that Number 5 did not accompany them. The absence of Number 5 was unexpected, given their previous interactions. Geomhua made it clear that harboring resentment towards Number 5 wasn't on her agenda. They set out on this expedition with a lack of expectations regarding the potential hazards that might await them. They grasped the necessity of approaching their journey with vigilance. Musang let out another sigh of relief. It seemed that Number 5 had indeed left the province, and they wouldn't encounter her again. At least, that was the hope. While he promised to fulfill any request from her, he secretly hoped that they wouldn't have any more reasons to meet again. Suddenly, a piercing cry echoed in the Dragon and Tiger Academy hall. Someone was desperately calling out, "Musang!" Stepping out to the cries, he couldn't help but remark that making noise was not permitted within the academy. However, he knew that the person shouting was from the academy themselves and should have been aware of this rule. "Musang, help me! Save!" he continued to cry out. It was his close friend, senior inspector of the Yangzhou District Management, Cha Myung-jun. Musang joked that if he apologized for the noise, he would help him. But Cha Myung-jun was too distressed to be in the mood for jokes. It seemed like something really bad had happened to him. He pretended to laugh, but his laughter was strained and forced, as if trying to hide the anxiety that loomed in his eyes. He stopped laughing, furrowing his brow, pondering the question. Will this be enough for them to listen to him? Musang sighed, feigning a touch of disappointment, and rolled his eyes as if emphasizing his surprise. He portrayed an appearance of being intrigued, stating that he was ready to listen to what problem he was facing. Cha Myung-jun mentioned that 3 days ago, 3 courtesans disappeared nearby. This incident occurred at the House of Fragrant Essences, known as the finest brothel in the district. Among the missing courtesans was Erin, renowned for her skill in playing the zither. She was especially adored by the district officials. He was given a task to bring her back within 3 days, and today marks the end of that period. However, he couldn't find any leads. He asked Musang for help in finding Iran, knowing that he was always good at finding clues. He asked how it happened. Cha Myung-jun told him that 3 days ago, from 9 to 11 in the evening, the courtesans entertained 3 merchants who seemed to be quite noisy. After that, there was silence in the rooms, and even after 2 hours, no one came out. The manager went to check, but by that time, they had disappeared without a trace. The manager and the guards stated that they had never seen these merchants before. Although they were dressed like merchants, there was no evidence to confirm their trade activities. He was certain that these merchants were martial arts masters disguised as such. They likely used a particular technique to escape through the window. Musang stood and attentively listened to his story. It seemed like he already knew about it. Cha Myung-jun clarified if he missed anything important. However, number 100 confirmed that it was evident that those merchants were martial arts masters. Approaching the window, he looked at the roof of the adjacent building and remarked that he could see several traces there. Most likely they were left by the abductors. They were unfamiliar with the local yellow sand, and at night they didn't know they would leave traces. He assumed that most likely they were indeed highly skilled masters, as they managed to outsmart everyone and abduct the girls. Musang leaped onto the window and clarified, "Do we need to bring the girls back today?" He promised that he would try to do it as quickly as possible. Cha Myung-jun realized his mistake and immediately rushed to his friend, embracing him. He didn't want him to go alone in search of the girls. Musang couldn't understand why he was being held back, considering that he had just been asked to find the kidnapped girls. He said he would rather face punishment from the officials than know that his friend suffered because of his request. He didn't know there were martial arts masters involved. He could only guess. Musang insisted, trying to convince his friend that he could now stand up for himself. However, his friend didn't believe him and kept holding him back, fearing for his life. Engaging in a battle with 3 martial arts masters was a task very few people were capable of. A crowd had gathered on the street, watching their standoff. However, Cha Myung-jun realized his mistake, and now, under no circumstances, wanted to let his friend go on this dangerous mission. Musang, realizing that he couldn't convince his friend, tapped him on the head to get him to let go, and said that he could take care of himself, no need to worry. Pushing off from the window, he followed the trail left by the criminals. His friend begged him to stop, but he could no longer hear. Meanwhile, the Phantom Mask, who had sent his warriors to search for the killers, awaited results from them, but they lowered their heads and said they couldn't find anything. They added that they were very sorry. Even the dogs couldn't track the trail of the criminals who were killing people in this province. The Phantom Mask had already hoped that they would catch these mysterious killers, but they couldn't capture the trail. Lost in thought about how to find them, he heard a woman's voice behind him. She said it seemed he had a lot on his mind. It was Chief Patroller Murong and her guard, Senior Dragon Staff Papa. He was quite surprised to see them. They greeted him. He said that if they came to see Muryok Gai, they wasted their time, as he was dealing with a request from number 100 in the Yunhee district. Laughing, Gyeomhwa said that she wasn't here for that. She was passing by and just wanted to pay him a visit. But he didn't believe her, saying that if she was here, it meant she needed something from him. She wouldn't just come to visit him out of the blue. Smiling, she said he was right, and he couldn't be fooled just like that. Then she added that she asked him, as the elder of the beggars gang, to write her a recommendation letter. Of course, she didn't expect him to do it just like that. She could offer her help with whatever he needed, but within reason. The old man's eyes lit up. He knew he had something to ask her, but he asked what she could help him with. She said she knew well about the great tracker Myriad Mile Hawkshaw, who was the best in the Central Plains. He wouldn't even miss a ghost's trace. The Phantom Mask was skeptical about Myriad Mile Hawkshaw. He knew that he never left the Central Plains. Gyeomhwa said she knew about his secret disciple, whom he personally trained and who surpassed his teacher. The Phantom Mask was very surprised that this arrogant tracker had left a disciple behind who surpassed him. He had never heard of this. His interest peaked to unprecedented heights. He wanted to know who this disciple was and where to find them. However, Gyeomhwa said that unfortunately she couldn't tell him. He said, "Then what's the point of you mentioning him?" Gyeomhwa said that she was trained by the elder's successor and was also skilled in tracking techniques. This intrigued the old man greatly. He thought that she might be able to help him if she wasn't lying about mastering tracking techniques. After thinking for a moment, he assumed that if she had carried out orders to exterminate the dragons, at that time Myriad Mile Hawkshaw was her teacher, and spoke very highly of number 100. He realized that she was talking about number 100. This surprised her greatly, how quickly he understood who she was referring to. She didn't know how to react and justify herself. She didn't want him to know about him, but it was already obvious to everyone that she was talking about him. Meanwhile, Musang scratched his ear, trying to listen for his target. He was sure the kidnappers were somewhere nearby. He was surprised they had the audacity to hide not far from the mountain. However it was, he knew they had planned everything well. Tracking someone in the mountains or dense forest is usually much easier than in the city, where hardly anyone roams. But what surprised him was how they could vanish without a trace in such a desolate place. He closed his eyes to concentrate on the sounds and carefully plan his next moves. But suddenly someone screamed and began to fall from a tree right onto him. Thank you for watching. If you need a continuation of this story, please write in the comments, as well as subscribe to the channel and like it.